So this video is going to talk about my support system, my family. And it's quite traumatizing, but I need to get it out. I feel a little bit better when I get these on video, because then it's like, okay, well, you know what? One topic checked off. And I have a lot of topics to talk about. My family is really interesting. I don't even know how this video is going to go. I haven't really prepared for this one, but I do think about it all the time. I'm going to talk about my mom first. She has been in healing mode my whole life. There's a video on my YouTube about her car accident and her traumas up until she was a teenager. And her entire life has been very traumatizing. It eventually broke her, and she resorted to coping mechanisms that were not healthy for anybody. My mom has always been sort of my dependent for as long as I can remember. I've been her shoulder to cry on. Even from my earliest memory, I felt like I was making more ground decisions as like a child in comparison to her. And, she came to me for advice even when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. I don't even think she wanted to hear the advice, but she definitely opened my eyes to problems in the world and things like that. And I was more like her therapist or shoulder to cry on. I don't think she intended to help herself or the situation as much as she needed attention and things like that. I've grown a lot of empathy for my mom, and by saying that, I mean that I've experienced a lot of the things that she's experienced in one way or another, and I have learned a different perspective on my mom's experience from personal experience, from being pinned against the wall in certain scenarios and not being able to know your way out or have the resources or have the family support. The weird thing is that we all suffer from sexual assault. My grandmother was assaulted when she was very young. My mother was assaulted by a family member when she was very young. This is hard to talk about. And I was assaulted when I was very young, but not by a family member. So there's a lot of sexual assault, generational trauma. And then you look at the way that we've all coped with that, and all of us have coped with it very differently, and it's all affected us very differently, and we're all very difficult with each other because of our traumas, and we all approach our trauma differently. So my grandmother's approach to trauma is that it never happened. I think she's from a particular generation where you don't talk about your skeletons in the closet. You just kind of act like it doesn't exist. My mother chose to drown them, and that wasn't a good option either. I think both of their actions were unhealthy. My mom choosing to drown her sorrows and my grandmother trying to bottle them up both caught up to them and everybody around them. And for me, how have I've kind of done both. and learned that neither of them worked. And now I'm just spewing it out and talking about it as much as I possibly can. But I'm trying to talk about it from like the most empathetic way. Like I don't want to come across as like I'm angry at my family, because I think that they did their best, considering also their lack of support and lack of family and things like that. So, having said that about my immediate family, I don't know my dad. I'll get to that later. I don't know my grandfather really that well. My mom had a sister who she was really close with, who died when she was really young. And she had a daughter who wants something to do with me for the second time. And we were quite close growing up, but she's developed some intolerances to the things that I've had to do to survive, or my sexuality. And that's been a big topic in my life from when I was a child. My family is homophobic. Some of them don't want to admit it nowadays, but like when I grew up in the 90s, I had long hair and I was really feminine. And like my family would talk about faggots, and they would say I looked like a girl and stop trying to grow your hair out. You look like one of those faggots, So like I grew up with family that talked like that and were constantly making homophobic jokes at the table. And then I went to school and I got called fag. And I just kind of had a really hard time with all of that. And so I never really got too close to that side of my family. A lot of the reason because when I grew up, I thought that they were homophobic, like based off of all of the things that they fucking said all the time. So I just like, and I'm still not close to any of them. I barely know any of their birthdays. I don't know, anyways. So the only family that I really have growing up before things happened, was my grandmother, who raised me whenever my mom couldn't. And then my mom. And my grandmother has been in and out of my life my whole life, because she is that person that wants to pretend that nothing bad happens all the time. And realizing that that's not a good thing to do, she has truly like disowned me. She's totally embarrassed of me because I have been so vocal and transparent and open about my life. So having said that, my whole life has been really traumatizing as far as family goes. My mom, like in between my grandmother's care, my mom's care, police involvement, lots of that with my mom and me and everybody really. And, children's aid and, rehab for my mom, and like so many really, difficult times that a lot of people go through. And, a lot of traumatic things happened that I'll get more into with my book. And the long story short is I ended up more or less on my own. The courts approved it. Everyone, was like, okay, well, you're 14, it's a bit too late for foster care. And you seem like you can take care of yourself. I've been taking care of myself for a long time by that point. So they just let me go on off my own. My grandmother, when she found out that I was gay, she was okay with it, like to my face. But in the long run, she was one of those homophobic people that is like afraid to tell anyone that she's homophobic. She'll be like, oh, I have gay friends. No, like, it's the way she treated me when I was there. She asked, really uncomfortable questions about sex. at the dinner table, or she made sure like and she was like, you better not get any poo on the sheets, like really, really offensive. Like, I don't even know how that came up. And later on, she treated me like I was just diseased all the time. Like, she made me bleach everything 3 or 4 times. Like, I remember when I moved to her place, I I was asked to take a toothbrush to everything that I owned, and to like sit there at the laundry sink with a tub of bleach, hand bleaching everything. And she was like afraid, and like she would wear gloves when she changed my sheets and things like that. It was just really, really, really strange, how she treated me. And I couldn't really get over it. I tried to challenge her and talk to her about it, and she always acted like it didn't exist. And there were some things that she's done, to my mom, to me, to other people in my family, that I had to kind of just accept that we're not really family. She's been in and out of my life so many times for her choice of, abandoning me for whatever reason that she thinks is just. And I just got tired of all of that, of having to pretend grandmother. So I finally just was like, you know what? Okay, you're Vivian to me now. I don't even consider you a grandmother. When I look up the dictionary of grandmother, they don't do all of these things. And you don't love me unconditionally, the way that I've loved her. And, you just have to know when to walk away from something that's too toxic. And so that's what I ended up doing. My mother is not in my life either. So those are really the two people that were in my life. My mom, on the other hand, is like a different story. My mom chooses not to be in my life because she can't handle it. And I don't know why. She has gone through so much trauma, and she has drowned so much of her life that she doesn't even have a really good memory of anything. And she's just still in healing mode from like the day that I was born. And she can't handle too much of anything. She gets overwhelmed, and she's not drinking anymore, but she can't handle very much. And, she's not here for me. I've needed her in the last few years a couple times, like, where I thought perhaps my life was at risk, and she doesn't, I tell her, how much I need her, and she doesn't come. Like, she blocks my number, she ignores me, and I just have to let it, or she makes it worse. Or like, if I do ask her for help and she comes, she usually does something to like steal the spotlight, or like make it about her, and she'll cause a huge scene. Back in the day, a couple times I really needed her more than anything, and she showed up really drunk and made it harder for me. And so I have like this in the back of my mind. Okay, if I ask my mom for help, I might not get it. Like, it may make things worse. So, even with that, I still need her sometimes. And, either she doesn't help, or she makes it worse. And then, my cousin, who was like my sister growing up, my mom's sister's daughter, when she found out I was gay, and these are the only 3 people in my life, my family, that were close to me. And I have I have a bigger family, but throughout my whole life, I didn't really get close to very many other people. Whether that was because of my mom. My mom caused a lot of problems. My grandmother caused a lot of problems. A lot of problems. and to each their own. So when I am the offspring of these two difficult women in my family, my grandmother thinks she's the Queen of England. My mother is sort of the blackest sheep who really has like no self-control and can cause a lot of damage really quickly, really destructive. And not because she means to, but because she's just so full of pain. Okay, it's like, I don't blame her. And I don't really blame my grandmother either. I really don't. I sit here and I've been writing my book. I've been trying to really understand life from their perspective and how they got there. And I know like it's not their fault. And I know that we can't have a relationship because I've tried more than anyone to be a part of their lives. And you just can't force things to happen. You just can't make someone be a mother, and you can't make someone be a grandmother. They either want to be or they don't. So I've given up on that. Gave up on that a long time ago. And then my cousin I had until I was like in high school, and like then we were apart for a while. And then I ran into her again after I came out in my 20s, I think. And she found out I was gay. And then she hid from me. She really did everything she could to avoid me. I knew her boyfriend was homophobic. I knew her boyfriend's family was homophobic, her fiance and everybody that she is around. I know that her life was brought up around homophobia as well, considering our family and her family and everybody. And when I went to go visit her one time, like I knew where she worked. She worked at the same place for like 10 years, I think. And I would go and visit her on her birthday, and she would see me and run. And she didn't want to be seen with me. And at the time, I was extra gay. Like when I first came out for the first few years, I remember I like every gay boy, they want to be recognized as gay so that they don't miss an opportunity, I think is why. And, you get the tightest pants and the glittery shirts, and, you curl your eyelashes and you put eyeshadow and you just fucking gay it right up. And, she took one look at me from the cash, and she looked at me and we made eye contact, and I was just going in to wish her a happy birthday, and she ran into the back of the store. I asked one of her co-workers to get her, and I told her who it was, and then they came back and was just like, she's too busy. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like I haven't seen her for years, a year, and I did it a couple more times. To be honest, it wasn't. I really didn't. I was hoping maybe she was just really busy. I was thinking maybe that was just the case or whatever, but no, it happened a few more times and then I just gave up, and I was like, okay, you know what? She doesn't want to be in my life anymore, and I have to accept that. So I was alone for a lot of my life. I don't ever remember a good Christmas. Like, family holidays are like my kryptonite. It's true. Like when I think about family holidays, I want to throw up. I get nauseous, I close the blinds. I pretend like I fit in, like I put Christmas lights up. I make it look like I'm not a Scrooge. I want to pretend that I have that fantasy, but I don't. And it's sad. There have been times that we've tried, and it's interesting because I think, because we've all experienced so much trauma, and my cousin is not, and I don't blame her for all of her problems either. I know that she was just trying to protect her own family. You know, she has been very isolated from her own family as well, like me, for various reasons, or she's isolated herself from everybody for valid reasons. And I think, after her mom died, she was all alone too. And it's like, I watch her grow up and she meets this guy and this family, and she replaces everybody that she used to have in her life with this new family, and they're all like really homophobic people. And so, of course, naturally, she's going to do everything to protect that. She has apologized to like pushing me away. And she came back into my life again once or twice, and it was and both times were because she was going through a possible separation, and she was going to be alone, and she needed a family, and she came to me. And she came back into my life again most recently, and thinking like, she has a 14-year-old daughter that she has literally kept me from. Like, she brought me back into her life again recently, like last year when I moved back to London. And, she's like introducing me as her Uncle Aaron. Meanwhile, like, it's the first time I've seen this kid, really. I've only met her like a couple times before this, and that's not of my actions. I've spent my whole life trying to push myself onto my cousin's life and to trying to help her and be in her life, and I've been pushed away. So like, I've always wanted to be a family guy, but I'm not in a family that is good at it. So we have all of this trauma, all of us don't know how to deal with it. Nikki is like my grandmother, who just like pretends nothing happened and is embarrassed of anyone that tries to say anything. She can't handle, both of them can't handle talking about this kind of stuff. And so I make them uncomfortable because I like talking about it. And then if you try and talk about it with my mom, she gets overwhelmed and has a moment where she goes and drowns herself and stuff, and she just disappears. She runs away and disappears. So we're all traumatized. We've all traumatized each other, and none of us know how to deal with it. And so we've all isolated each other, and we've all needed each other our entire lives, but yet we push each other away, and we're all guilty of it, all of us. And it's amazing how much trauma can affect you, generation to generation, how everything that these four women, like Natalie didn't really affect me, my mom's sister, but my mom, my grandmother, and my cousin, those three girls, all of them impacted me in a way, and I have impacted them, and each and every one of you. It's really fucked up because we all bring that into new relationships. And so when I'm meeting somebody, like, I'm super sensitive to certain things, and I feel like I'm the only one that's actually working through it. And the only benefit to talking about it is meeting people who survived it, or who have ideas, or just encouragement or relatability, where you meet somebody that's like, hey man, no, I totally get you. And you cannot get that without talking about this. And I have no idea what these videos are going to do as far as helping others. For me, I'm just trying to get everything off of my chest. I'm tired of being looked at a certain way and people having, false impressions of me. And I'm tired of pretending that I've got everything together. There was a time in my life when, I used to be like, I would just lie about Christmas and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to my mom's and this and that. And I would pretend like everything was normal, kind of like my grandmother does. And it doesn't work. It just makes you feel worse. And so I don't know how they do it. And then you have like, I don't know, this is just very traumatizing for me to talk about. But it's getting better. And then when you think about so that's my mom's side. That's about it. Like, there are a couple people in my extended family, like my grandmother's brother was actually very close to me. And, I stayed with him a couple times when my mom couldn't help me. But he's been in and out of my life quite a bit. But I know that he respects me. He's just really busy and consumed with his own things. But he's helped me a few times, and I'm very grateful for him. I don't know if I would be where I am today if I didn't have his support. And then his son as well has come into my life a couple times and has been really supportive to me as well. But beyond that, the general consensus is that people are rather homophobic or just judgmental of me because I'm from my mom and my grandmother. And my mom and my grandmother have given so many people so many problems in my family. And it's not even their fault, I don't think. It's just because they've been traumatized so much. Like myself, like I've been so traumatized that I'm like a spark and I just piss everybody off. Like I'm no different than them, really, truly. Which is why I also will never have children, so that I don't have to traumatize that kid, by my own traumas and fears and things like that. So my dad, such a fucked up story. Oh my God. So my mom and my dad met through my grandmother. My brother picked me up at the bar with my mom, I guess. They dated for 3 years. My dad didn't want to have sex until they got married. He's from a Roman Catholic family. And they were getting engaged and they had sex before. And my mom was conceived. I was conceived, sorry. And then he didn't show up to the rehearsal. And he tells my mom that somebody else's kid. And later we find out why all of this happened. I'll get to that in a minute. But there's definitely, it makes more sense when I met his family later. But all of this bullshit that happened. So then my mom's sister finds out that my dad is going around telling everybody that my mom's a whore and she slept with everybody else and it's not his kid. And so my sister actually my mom's sister hit him over the head with a 2x4 in a parking lot. And then that was they just like dispersed after that. I don't know what happened after that, but definitely nobody was talking to anybody after that. My mom lived at a homeless shelter while I was born after that. So she spent the rest of her term at St. Joseph's, Sisters of St. Joseph's for like homeless people. And I was born homeless. My dad came back into my life at 2 and then disappeared again. I don't know why. But I guess they ran into each other. And then my mom spent like 7 years trying to get child support and things like that. And My dad just kind of like kept under the radar. And there was a time that my mom got his driver's license canceled and he had to make a settlement. And my mom got like a settlement for past arrears. And he was supposed to continue paying it, but then he just disappeared again. And it was really, really hard to find him. My mom did everything she could. And then, yeah, I met him when I was 10 years old. That's when the payout happened. And he was supposed to be in my life after that. Like, he agreed with the judge, apparently, that he was going to see me more often. He bought me a keyboard. He's a piano teacher. He was going to send me piano lessons. And we were going to see each other like twice a month. And I only saw him once, and I never saw him again. I don't even remember what he looks like. I remember like a few things, like on the drive to his place, like what we ate, but we didn't talk very much. And it was awkward. I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of grateful that he wasn't in my life. And, you know, I'm kind of sad. But, you know, he could have made it worse by being in my life. I knew that he was not like father material, even from one experience with him. I was really sad that he disappeared, like after all the promises he made when he was there. I was angry at my mom. I blamed my mom. I thought my mom said something to him or threatened him when she was drunk and he got scared. So I kind of still blame my mom for that. Like, I feel like my dad could have had good intentions, but he, you know, my mom is also a really difficult person with a lot of pain who was left alone with a kid for a really long time and had a lot to say. And yeah, so he disappeared. I grew up. Moved on my own, was homeless. Finally, when I got a really good job, I looked at hiring a private investigator for my dad when I was in my 20s. And I really, like, I spent like 2 years calling like piano teachers, every piano person in Oshawa where he used to live, I called, I asked him if anybody knew if he was still teaching. I called almost every O'Neill in the phone book. It took me a really long time, but I literally called almost every O'Neill in the phone book in the area that he used to live. And that did not work. I really tried my best, in my honest opinion, to find my dad. And then in my mid-20s, I gave up. And I sold the keyboard. I was like, you know what, he's never coming back, you know. And I went to university and I thought I was going to drop out. I actually was planning on dropping out because I couldn't afford it anymore. And I was tired of selling myself. And I knew that if I continued school, I only had 1 year left too. But I thought to myself, you know what, I can't keep doing this. I need to just go back to finance. I won't be able to make it through the final year without like a significant amount of money because of the demands of my final year. And I just was like, you know what, it's over. I had a GoFundMe campaign going from a year ago that I thought was closed, that I wasn't even monitoring, but for some reason the GoFundMe account was still running. And this was like from my second year. So that had been running for a while and I forgot about it. And I get this email from my dad's sibling saying we want to meet and we want to help you through your school. And I'm just like, what the fuck? You know, I need a cigarette. Like, seriously? What do you mean you're gonna like just come out of nowhere? Like, who the fuck are you? You know, I don't know who you are. And the names matched, like the siblings, Adele and Dan. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, I don't even know what I thought. I was like, what is this? Family coming out of nowhere on a GoFundMe account, finding me on a GoFundMe account, wanting to help me through school. And they found out that I had been driving to school with bald tires, no brakes. Like I had no brakes. My brakes were rusted. Like everything in my car was like, it was a miracle that I even got to school every day. Like, like driving 3 hours too in that year to get to school from Oshawa to Guelph when I was living in Oshawa at the time, like, or in Toronto, sorry, downtown Toronto. Driving to Guelph every day for school, it was crazy. Yeah. And my Taurus was falling apart because I couldn't afford the maintenance while I was in school. And that's just a risk that students take every single day to get their degree. And, you know, a part of the accidents on the road are because of fucking people that can't afford to maintain a car. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. So he offered to pay for my tuition, and then I was like, whoa, you know, whoa. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I've had a lot of people in my life betray me and disappoint me, and make really big promises to, you know, and then back out. So I was already, like, from the very beginning, like, right on guard. Like, who the fuck is this? I don't know. I don't believe you. I don't trust you. You know, if we are going to make this work, I need, like, I need all of my bases covered. I'm not going to put my entire soul and life and, like, this possible chance of me ending up worse than I've ever been, you know, on some guy that just came back into my life after knowing that I've existed for 30 fucking years. You know, like, sorry, you know that I was alive. Now you just come out of nowhere because you find me on some GoFundMe account. Like, I'm easily accessible all over the internet. And it was true. Like, once they found my GoFundMe account, Adele, my dad's sister, started looking up other things. And she found my Instagram, my LinkedIn, all these things all over the internet because I'm all over the internet. Very easy to find me if you tried. So I was a little bit skeptical. But my GoFundMe account had my whole big story, and it was really traumatizing. And I think they felt really guilty that everything had happened to me. And they're extremely fucking wealthy people. So it turns out. When they offered for the tuition, my dad's brother, who's really wealthy, who's been sort of he's been my dad's caregiver, and we'll get to that in a second. Because my dad is also a dependent. Both my parents are dependents. My mom right now is a dependent of the state. She's on disability, but she's been, you know, one from the other. My dad is also a dependent, mostly I think of his brother, who has been taking care of him. And Dan is his name, and he came out and you know, was like, I had to pay for your dad's house and all of his bills and his stuff, and, you know, keep him protected. And, you know, they were like, we want to meet with you and tell you some things in person. And so I met with Adele in Toronto at this, like, yacht club. I was just like, okay. She gives me a birthday card for my whole life. I think it had, I can't remember how much money it had. It had a pretty good chunk of money in it. And I was like, wow, amazing. Thank you. And then she goes to tell me that she wanted to get together with me to let me know that my dad has not had a great life, and that my dad has schizophrenia, that it's quite severe, and he's been sort of in this traumatic episode his whole life, thinking that, people are out to get him or whatever. So it puts a lot into context with my mom. And I was also told at the same time that my mom is actually the third woman that he did the same thing to, which means he got 2 women pregnant before my mom and called them whores and said that they were after his money and like the pregnancy wasn't his and like blah, 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 blah. So I find out in one day that like my dad's schizophrenic and I have 2 half brothers, and my dad's family is loaded, and they knew about me and knew my mom and loved my mom and still chose to just completely erase themselves from my life up until this point. And no contact. And they offered to like give me all this money for school. Dan offered to buy me a car, a brand new car. I was like, no, I don't want any of these big promises. I was like, just fix the car that I already have. It's almost paid off. And then he did that. And I was so grateful. And he kept rubbing this new car in my face. He was like, I drive this like Quattro Audi or whatever. I don't even know. It's like too expensive for me. And rubbing these like expensive wheels in my face. He's like, trust me. He's like, as long as it's under $25,000, I'll get it for you or whatever. Pay it off, until you get a great job and this and that. Like, and I'm just like, maybe I should do this, my boyfriend at the time, who was helping his mom get on her feet, needed a car. So I was like, okay, maybe I can take this opportunity and I can help, this person, and, I can take this offer because it's rude to say no. And like, okay, sure, I'll go look at some new cars. I buy a brand new car. The payments were going to be paid by him, and is not something that I wanted to do. I really, I bit my tongue. I thought my partner and I were going to be together after this too. I thought nothing else bad was going to happen. At the time, also, I forgot to mention, very important detail. I hid that I was gay really quickly. My first meeting with Adele back on the yacht club, my mom thought my dad was gay. That's why he disappeared, which makes sense. 9 brothers and sisters. I'm sure one of them is going to be gay. And I'll never forget the way she responded to me. I was like, oh, when she told me that my dad is schizophrenic, I was like, oh, my mom always thought that, he disappeared because he was gay. And her first response was like, oh no, we don't have any of those in our family. And I was like, uh-oh. Yeah, I got a girlfriend. Yo, what's up, bitch? I was like, yo, I got a girlfriend, yo. And I was just like, I didn't want to ruin this opportunity right away. That's the first thought I had. I was like, oh my God, they're going to hate me. I don't want to be the first gay in this perfect little family that they think they have, not being infected by the gays. And, I was already warned. My mom told me that I was called a bastard, that they're Roman Catholics, they're Irish Italian, very strict Roman Catholic. And, they definitely are. I was called a bastard when I was born by his family. that's perhaps another reason why I was not considered part of the family, because I was some evil and born out of wedlock. God forbid they find out I'm fucking gay too, some pervert. Anyway, some bugger. So I definitely was like, as soon as she said we don't have any of those, I told her I was straight. And then I had a girlfriend, and I lied. There was no way that I was going to tell them that I was gay right off the bat. I needed to get a better feeling for the family. And they were still hiding me from my father. They were still telling me that they weren't going to let me see my father. And like, I was like, okay, you know. And so a year of them helping me with school, at the end of my which I was so grateful for, they sent me a lot of money, okay, like almost $20,000 to get me through that final year. That covered the car, my home, my tuition, my gas, my travel from Oshawa or Toronto to Guelph, like everything that was good. My medicine, everything was covered. I was finally able to like really focus on school. And then I was like graduating, and I was like, hey, like, am I gonna get to see my dad yet? Like, I met you guys in June of last year, and I'm like coming up to my graduation here. It would be really nice if I had some family at my graduation. Or like, I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to go by myself. Like, that's embarrassing. You know, I think about graduation, everybody's family is going to be there, and like, I just wanted maybe somebody, just like one person that I could trust, that wasn't going to cause a scene or embarrass me, or like, I didn't mean I wanted my dad to go, but like, I was putting pressure on them. Like, I needed a family, like, and I was sad, and they didn't really like that too much, I don't think. And I started to get a little, I don't know, concerned that this was like a business transaction, and they weren't really intending to be part of my life. And my boyfriend at the time was kind of like, it does seem like that as well, just by how cold they are in their emails and things like that. And I don't know, I was working really late one night. My finals, I was, you know, really, really struggling. They didn't know I was gay, and I wrote an email about my final project. I had probably not slept for like 3 days, maybe a few naps, and I misplaced all my pronouns. And I didn't get to tell them that I was gay through be like, hey, you know, I'm actually gay. I'm sorry that I told you I had a girlfriend. I was scared. And I after that email, I was disowned completely. Like, everything that they responded to after that was met with short, cold emails, and then it finally just exploded. And he called me every single thing in the book, and except for faggot. And I was just like, okay. And I conned him into this everything and all these awful things. And I'm just like, you know what? If you told me at the beginning that, you know, accepting your help would have meant that I would have been a con man, like, I wouldn't have accepted. I would have chosen family over this money. Like that's the thing. Like, I have been without family my entire fucking life. So like, for you to tell me that I'm no longer a part of the family, he's like, you're never going to meet your dad. No one else in the family even knows about you. He even said to me, he's like, this is my dad's brother. He's like, no one else knows that we found you. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you haven't even told anybody else? Like, you're helping me with this fucking school? I was so blown away. And then he just disappeared. Stopped responding to every single email. And I felt abandoned by my entire dad's side of the family at like 33 years old, 32, after spending my whole life trying to find them, and then getting like a year of them trying to pay off their guilt, basically, is what that was. To find out I'm like not worthy of even that. because I'm, a bastard homosexual. And I'm sure there's people in my family that are not homophobic on that side of the fence. Like, I'm sure there's new generations that have grown up beyond that, but I don't even know who they are. A part of the reasons why I'm doing these videos a lot of the time is because, like, I have an entire family of people that don't even know that I exist, that I haven't been able to exhaust really. Like, I have half brothers. I have, and so I'm like, this is kind of like hoping to reach out to them too. Like, anyway, that's where I stand with my family. Still don't know where my dad is. And I went through like a few months of trying to call a bunch of O'Neills again, but I don't know, didn't work. And I remember just screaming in my head every night, like, why? So I'm really lonely. And a lot of really fucked up shit has happened to me. And it's been really hard to process. Like, it's hard to write this book. It's like killing me slowly. Anyway, that's sad. Family. I don't really know what else I can say about it. I've tried to explain everything that I can without hurting anybody else's feelings. I don't know if I've done that. I'm sure I've hurt a lot of people's feelings, but it's still, this is my experience, and I know some people have better intentions than what happens. I just think that we all have to be accountable for other people's perceptions of us as well. And so, I know that I've done a lot of fucking mean shit too. And I don't defend it. I don't think, oh, that person deserves it. I did it because I couldn't control my emotions. I feel bad about it after. That's a step up from most people. Some people do awful things and they don't feel bad about it after. I always feel bad. And I wish a lot of the times that I do something wrong that I didn't do that. And I always learn from it, but I'm never perfect. And so I know that I have my own struggles with being nice and or not hurting people's feelings. Like, I always hurt people's feelings. So I don't like blame all these people in my family for hurting my feelings in a way that, like, I understand everybody has a branch that they grew from and what they're exposed to, and a lot of their feelings come from that. So, and you can't change it unless you talk about it. And that's why I'm doing. So thanks for listening.